You're listening to WPVM LP Asheville 103.7, globally at WPVMFM.org. And this is the Home Business Success Show. Greetings and welcome to the Home Business Success Show. I'm your host, Hank Eder, also known as Hank the PR Guy. Folks who run home businesses have some great advantages over brick and mortar businesses. They also face unique challenges. As we speak with home business entrepreneurs on the show each week, we'll gain valuable insights on how to balance business and life and to share best practices for people who run home businesses. Our first guest, Brian Basilico, is an award-winning, internationally recognized author and speaker, and a self-professed geek. He's the founder and president of B2B Interactive Marketing Incorporated, an award-winning marketing consulting and production company in Aurora, Illinois. B2B was founded in 2001 and helps companies and nonprofits market their products and services through the effective use of online tools, including websites, blogs, email, social networking, Google, SEO, YouTube, and more. Brian's career spans almost 40 years. Since his first production company in 1979, he's produced thousands of projects for hundreds of companies, ranging from solopreneur to Fortune 100. Brian combines years of marketing experience with technical expertise to build online campaigns that continue to produce measurable results. As a musician, technician, programmer, producer, and consultant, he has built a reputation for creativity, innovation, and translating geek speak into English. Brian is also an adjunct professor, trainer, speaker, and author of many marketing and social networking blogs, articles, and books. Brian is the host of the popular The Bacon podcast, a twice-weekly show that includes tips and tricks and guest expert interviews. The Bacon podcast is one of the top 35 outstanding podcasts as chosen by Inc. magazine. That's INC, for those who are wondering, Inc. magazine. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey, Hank, man, thanks for having me.
Oh,
Thanks for that. That introduction's a mouthful, I know. It's a lot.
Well, for those who have done a lot of things, the introductions get a little bit longer. Well, your business, B2B Marketing, for those who aren't familiar with the term, will you please expand on the meaning of B2B?
Sure. Well, there's two terms that most people talk about, is B2B and B2C. B2C is business to consumer. B2B is business to business. So the major focus of my business is helping other businesses promote themselves to businesses. It's very different. The kind of marketing that consumer companies do, a Coke or something like that, to the consumer market is different than the way that businesses have to sell their services to other businesses. Just the life cycle of a lead is much longer. On average, could take upwards of 2 to 4 years before somebody purchase from you, where, a box of Kleenex, a Coke, whatever it is, those are consumables. People buy and change brands constantly. So it's a big difference.
I see. So can you give a few examples of B2B that our listeners would recognize?
Sure. Well, business to business marketing, the kind of companies that I work with are usually selling things to brand names. So for example, one of the companies I work with is in the barcoding industry. Well, what uses barcodes? Candy, just about everything you could possibly imagine has a barcode. So they have software, they have printers, they have supplies, they have systems that help them market to consumer companies. And so they're selling their services to another company, another business that eventually will sell to consumer products.
So in a nutshell, B2B is any product or service that someone as a business would sell to other businesses, not to consumers.
Exactly. Yep. 100% right.
Okay. Well, I've heard you talk about two types of marketing, wish marketing,
Hmm.
and strategic marketing. Could you please explain what those are and how they differ?
Yeah, absolutely. And the terms I like to use are entrepreneur and wantrepreneur. It's
I
very,
like entrepreneur.
yeah, very similar. Wish marketing is you put stuff out there and you wish that somebody's going to pay attention to it. And you have no measurement, you have no idea of what's happening. The strategic plan is something that I outlined in one of my books called The Bacon System. And it's based on something called the Marketing Trifecta. The Marketing Trifecta includes, number one, having a killer website, having a home base to market from and to. The second piece of that is understanding and utilizing something like Google Analytics or some kind of measurable or KPI that lets you understand the effect of what your marketing has. And then the third leg of that stool is content marketing. It's creating the right content at the right time for the right audience. And you have to realize that people are in different places when you're marketing to them. Some people are ready to buy now. Some people may be ready in the future. There's a big difference between somebody who just needs to know that you're there and somebody that has an absolute need to buy from you today. And you have to market to each one of those people differently. So using your website as a home base to create and add content, you can share that via social media, get that up on the web, put it out in blogs, put it out in podcasts, do ebooks, all different kinds of things, and then use Google Analytics to measure the effectiveness of each one of those tools. That way you could do more of what's working and less of what's not.
So that's what you're referring to as like the trifecta. And I think I've seen that described. I was looking over your website and I think I saw that described as the Bacon system.
Right. That's in that book. Exactly.
Right. And why do you call it the Bacon system? What does that mean?
Okay, so the first book I wrote was called It's Not About You, It's About Bacon, Relationship Marketing in a Social Media World. And what that book is really about is networking, online marketing, and getting to know people. And it's really about relationship marketing. And Bacon is an acronym. I used to work for AT&T years and years ago. Everything was an acronym there. You didn't go to the bathroom. You went to the LBR, LGR, which was the little boys' room, little girls' room. I worked at NSC. So BACON stands for Building Authentic Connections Online Networking. And that's where the bacon came into play. And bacon is one of the two most shared things on the internet. Number one is cat videos, and number two is bacon. If you go to Facebook, if you go to Instagram, you go to any social media platform, put in hashtag bacon and see how many posts come up. You'll be blown away.
And how many of those would lead you to the Bacon podcast?
Probably quite a few.
That,
I do a quote of the day every single morning, and the hashtag on that, I created my own hashtag, is hashtag Deep Bacon Thoughts. And usually that leads people back to the podcast or one of my books or something along those lines.
I've seen those and I've participated in them when I've seen them on Facebook. I think that's a clever addition to a way to do branding. And you've branded yourself very well with this notion of bacon and the Bacon podcast. And it's not about you, it's about the bacon.
Right.
So I think that to many of our listeners who are in the process now of just beginning to build home businesses and branding themselves, I think for many of them, it's going to be tough to come up with something as catchy as bacon. But I think they will need to start thinking about ways that people can think of them, that every time they think of them, they have some kind of a symbol or, something as tasty as bacon.
Exactly. Well, the key thing that you have to do is figure out, let's face it, no matter what business you're in, there's competition out there. There's people doing what you do. If you have something so unique, chances of you having as many people to purchase is going to slim down. The more niched out you are, the less the audience. So the key thing that you've got to do is you got to find a way to differentiate yourself. And it's usually through your value proposition. What do you offer that's different than the next person? I mean, Hank, you're in the PR business, right? I mean, how many PR people are out there? Millions, right? There's millions of people that do what you do. but you brand yourself a certain way. You brand yourself through music, you brand yourself through memes, you brand yourself through, you know, the style that you project, and, you know, that makes you memorable. And that's essentially what you're trying to do. It's like any other brand. If you think of Nike, you know, you say, just do it, right? If you think McDonald's, I love it, you know, or I'm loving it.
Or the Golden Arches. Yeah.
Right, the Golden Arches, you know, Ronald McDonald's a long gone, you know, thing, because clowns creep people out, but that's a whole nother story. But, you know, the key thing is what is going to make you stand out, what's going to make you memorable, and what would people, you know, the bottom line is your brand needs to be something that people can basically sell your services through. So in other words, when you say bacon and you think of me, that makes my brand stand out from anybody else who's doing internet marketing. You know, how many people out there do SEO, Google Analytics, websites, those kind of things? So by creating a brand that's memorable, it helps you stay top of mind. So the key thing you have to ask yourself is, what's the key differential between you and your competition? And how can you turn that into something that will be memorable? Like one of my key phrases that I use all the time is, I'm Brian Basilico with B2B Interactive Marketing. I show you why and teach you how. And that's my catchphrase. That's the thing that I do on top of the bacon. So people will remember the bacon, but I show you why and teach you how is the thing that people understand about my business that's different from anybody else who does online marketing.
That's certainly a breath of fresh air, because a lot of those who are in that business want to make everything seem like a big mystery, or
Right.
something that, you know, almost like you need to go to the high priest of the tech world to be able to crack this particular code. I
Right.
found, though, and this is just from my own experience, that anyone speaking about SEO, anyone who claims that they really know what Google wants is probably just blowing smoke at you, but they do know some things about what Google wants. And of course, there are some best practices
Right.
that people can use. But I like the notion of demystification, and that showing you why and teaching you how is definitely the way to go. For anyone just tuning in, my guest today is Brian Basilico of B2B Interactive Marketing in Aurora, Illinois. We're talking about some of the things that make really good marketing for home businesses and for all kinds of businesses. You mentioned the three components to the bacon system. It was a website, it was social media, and what was the third?
Actually, it's website first.
Yes.
It's analytics second, and content marketing third. So you got to create some content. And the website, I think one of the biggest things that home business or new business owners need to realize, I think one of the, if I can leave them with one key lesson today, is you need to own everything. So in other words, you want to own your hosting. You want to own your domain name. You want to own your Google business listing. That means you set it up, you put it on your credit card. Don't have a third party register your domain for you. If somebody sends you something in the mail, throw it away. You need to do it yourself, because what I've seen happen more than once is somebody gets disgruntled and takes the domain and points it to something bad. Somebody doesn't pay their credit card bill and your website goes away. You know, somebody says that they can get you to the #1 top spot on Google and they register your business, and then they threaten to take it down unless you pay them an exorbitant fee to keep it up, you know, which is a free service, you know. So the biggest thing you've got to do is you've got to learn to own your home base. Your website is the most important thing in your business, because it is your 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week salesperson. And then what you put on your website is very important. That's the content that we're talking about. That's where hiring a good writer like yourself to really explain the services in verbiage that talks to your customer as opposing talking at your customer. I know there's 7 words I can't say, but one of the things I can say is that a lot of companies tend to wee all over themselves. And what I mean by wee is we do this and we do this and we do this and we do this. And the customers don't care what we do. The customers care about what's in it for them. So a good, well-written website explains the benefits of how you can help another person or another company achieve what it is they came to your website for. So that home base is so important.
Yes, I do agree about what you said about owning all of your home bases. When I do websites for clients myself,
Hmm.
a lot of them, they just don't have the tech skills, and they can't even go ahead and do something as simple as registering a domain or getting a host system. But when I set it up for them, I make sure I set it up in their name with their card and everything.
Right.
And I make sure they have all of the passwords. I did have a lady who I built a website for a few years ago, and then she had a young intern come in
Hmm.
who wanted a greater degree of control over everything. And against my advice, they cut me out as an administrator.
Hmm.
And then before too long, this young lady tried to take over the whole operation. And this was an older person that she was working with. Well, I was able to get back in and rescue the site and
Hmm.
dump the other person as an administrator. But yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. You have to control every aspect of what you're going to be putting out there because your reputation and your business depend on it.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Okay, well, what kind of services does B2B interactive marketing offer to businesses?
Well, we do, for larger companies, we do everything from strategic planning to execution. So in other words, I've worked with you to do PR for companies. I've worked with blog writers to write specific blogs for different companies. One of my customers is putting on a webinar, so I help them produce webinars. The bottom line is I act as their online marketing department, and then I have a pool of talent that I bring in. I have dozens of people all based in the US. And the reason they're based in the US is because they understand how to communicate in the language of our customers. Using overseas talent is cheaper, but the problem is they don't understand the language, the needs, the way that we communicate as well. So the core of what I do is help here's how I put it is I generally, most of the customers I work with are CEOs. They're too busy to do marketing. They generally don't have, the marketing breadth of people in their business. So I try to stick a USB cord in the back of their head, suck their knowledge out, get that on a hard drive, and then have people utilize that to be able to help promote and market their business better. And, so getting that USB in the back of their head is pretty simple. It's called a Zoom meeting. I do Zoom meetings and I actually record them talking about what's the latest trend topic, what's happening in their business, what do they want to communicate, what's hot. And then we turn that over to the people who know how to communicate that in whatever medium is necessary, whether it's an audio or a video or a blog or web page. And we turn those messages into something that creates virility or viralness in a way that can be shared on social media. So it drives more traffic back to their website to hopefully generate more businesses. So that's kind of the scope of what I do.
It sounds like quite an all-inclusive system. And I think that you've touched upon something that I think new entrepreneurs or new solopreneurs, new home-based businesses, or even new brick and mortar businesses
Hmm.
ought to know is that they really can't do everything themselves and they really can't bring everything in-house.
Right.
So even though to some business people, it may sound in the beginning as if it's expensive to have outside consultants do certain things. But in the end, it really is less expensive because they're not putting up things like Social Security and with tax withholding and all of those kind of things. So it all comes out in the wash. But I would recommend to home business solopreneurs, especially, that they build a team and
Yes.
that team is able to do the things they need done.
Yeah, one of the things I would say is work to your strengths, hire to your weaknesses. Now, home businesses have limited budgets, so you have to be careful. And one of the things that definitely gets new business owners, small business owners, is BSOS, bright shiny object syndrome. They may go to a webinar and says, Instagram marketing is the wave of the future. You need to be on Instagram. So what do? They spend all of their time learning Instagram, trying to master Instagram, when none of their clients are on Instagram. You know, if you're selling, no offense to anybody, but if you're selling Depends diapers, your clients are on an Instagram. If you're selling cosmetics, then your clients are on Instagram, or Monster Energy drinks. That's where your clients are. Those clients are going to be probably on Facebook, or maybe on email, or maybe on YouTube. You've got to understand that if you hire the right people who understand how to market your business, it's not only a good investment, it's a smart investment. I always say that marketing should always be an investment, not an expense. You should always look at it, for every dollar that I spend, how can I make 3? If you're working with somebody and you say to them, if I invest, $1,000 in you, show me how that's going to make me $3,000. If they can show you that, then start working with them. The reason you need to make 3 is you need to make 1 to pay for their services, 1 for your time, because I don't care what it is, you can't have somebody do this on their own. You need to be involved in your own marketing, and then you need to make a profit. So it's $1 for the service, $1 for your time, and $1 for the profit. If somebody can show you how to turn $1 into 3, let's say you and me, we're sitting across the table at Starbucks. I hand you $1, you hand me 3 back. How long do you think I would go to that well? Forever,
I think you would,
right?
yes. That's the magic wishing well that everybody's been wanting.
Exactly. So that's the key thing as a small business owner, is you first have to ask yourself, is this going to make me $3? Is it going to make me a profit? If it's not, then how long will it take me to get to that profitable point? If somebody can't point out that return on investment, then it's an expense. If you do get a return on investment, then it's an investment, meaning you're investing $1 to make 3. That's good business practice. That's sound business practice.
That certainly is. Hey, you've got a long-running podcast. We mentioned earlier that you've had over 600 podcasts on the Bacon podcast. What is that all?
Including yours truly, Mr. Hank Eater. Check him out.
Yeah, I had a good time on that Bacon podcast. But what's that all about, and how can our listeners tune in?
Sure. Just go to baconpodcast.com. And what I offer in there is 2 weekly podcasts. One I call a monocast, which is me talking for 10 minutes about a particular marketing subject. And then the second one is an expert interview. And if you go in there and search, you will find just about everything you could possibly want or imagine. Everything from Google Analytics to PR to Facebook ads to anything you'd want to know about. I have an expert in that field talking about that subject.
Well, that's certainly something that I think would be of value to anyone that's in any business, home or otherwise. You're the author of multiple business-to-business books. Your most recent book is called Toilet Paper Math. Now there you go, Toilet Paper Math. That's a great title. Why don't you tell us what that means? What's that all about?
Sure. Well, I wish I would have written it 5 months earlier, because at the beginning of the pandemic, obviously there was a toilet paper shortage, and I actually came up with the concept, right when it hit. But what toilet paper math is, when you walk into a grocery store and you see this aisle filled with toilet paper, and they're big packages. On the outside, they have these signs, or markings that say 8 equals 32, 9 equals 120. What they're doing is they're saying that 9 rolls of toilet paper equals 120 rolls of this old toilet paper. But the problem is over the course of the years, toilet paper has shrunk. It went from 4.5 inches square down to 3.7 inches tall by 4.1 inches square. They're putting more on a roll, and they're packaging it, making you feel like you're getting more for your money, when actually you're paying more money for less toilet paper. So that's what toilet paper math is. And that's one of the things that a lot of B2B businesses do, is they'll focus on getting hits to their website. So if I was to tell you, Hank, I can get you 1 million hits to your website today for $500, would you buy it?
Well, it's tempting. It's tempting for sure.
Right. But the problem is that those 1 million visitors that you get speak Farsi and Russian. and they'd never buy from you. So the question, that's toilet paper math. It's like, it sounds great, you know, on the outside, but what you're really getting isn't what the end result is. So the whole book is really about the systems that I use in my business, but also understanding some of those bright, shiny things that people tend to focus on that really aren't making them money, and really starting to understand the concepts that they need to in order to get the ROI.
Can you give us an example or two of what's in that book?
Yes. Inside that book, I talk about things like bright, shiny object syndrome. I talk about, you know, especially in the B2B world, using something like LinkedIn is huge. And it's how to create a LinkedIn system for businesses. So in other words, how to set up a company page, why ads make sense, how to get your sales team involved, how to create content shared from your blog to all of your sales team's pages. Because what happens is, if you've got a sales team of 5 people, and I take one blog post and I share it to all 5 of those people's social media profiles, what normally would only be seen by maybe 100 people, if each one of them had, let's say, 500 contacts, now I'm expanding it out to 2,500 different people that might see your content, you know. So toilet paper math help expand the visibility of your content in a way that really gets you the results that you're looking for.
So it's a mindset that people should learn in order to get their message out there more effectively.
Exactly. And it's a system. I mean, it's a system that I'm working with current customers on, that, I mean, generally speaking, and these are rough numbers, but usually the customers may spend upwards of $10,000 a month on all services, but their sales team turns around and makes an additional $100,000 in sales. And again, it's back to that, you know, if I hand you $10 and you hand me $100, how long would we do that? All day long, right? You know, I'd keep taking that in. So it's really about, you know, creating a system that generates the sales that keeps that system going.
That's great. Well, earlier we talked about the bacon system. We talked about the 3 components of your
Mm-hmm.
system. Do the people who are using your strategic marketing plan, do they need to spend a lot of money on paid advertising?
It depends on what they're selling. Um, there can be ROI in that, but it just depends on the marketplace that they're in. If you're looking for brand awareness, sometimes Google ads can be good. If you're trying to drive traffic to a webinar, LinkedIn ads can be excellent for that. But it's understanding how they work and what the ROI is. So it's a tough question to answer, because until you have a business case as to why and what the end result is, it's really hard to say. But a lot of people do throw money at ads, like boosting posts in Facebook, which is a black hole. Because when you boost something in Facebook, it generally goes out to the audience that already knows, likes, and trusts you, and just shows content that's already sitting there. Where if you get them to search it out, they could find it anyways. So you have to be careful when it comes to paid advertising. It's like anything else. You get about a 1 to 2% return of people who actually act on what you put out there.
Right. And you mentioned how traffic can be misleading, because there's certain types of Facebook ads, you know, that ad will get shown to 20,000 people, but how many of those are actually your ideal customer? Probably
Right.
not very many of them. So you need to zoom in on things like that. Well, as we're getting short on time, I want to ask you, what are the best ways for our listeners to get in touch with you?
The easiest way to do it is go to the Google machine, go to Google and type in Brian Basilico, Brian Basilico. So from there, once you do that, you'll find all of my websites, the Bacon Podcast, my LinkedIn profiles, my Twitter, Facebook, whatever you want. And no matter how you want to communicate with me, I always accept those communications, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well, that's great. Well, I really appreciate you being here with us today, and I think you've given our audience some valuable insights, some good things to think about, especially if they're just beginning to think about their marketing strategies. Any last words you would tell them?
The last words I'm going to tell them is, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. You know, and that's really kind of the key, is you have to get your brand out there in a way that people want to be able to refer traffic and business to you. So build a brand that's memorable so that people know who you are, what you do, and get that ROI in business. And man, I really appreciate you having me on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you and answering those questions today.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Ditto.
Just a reminder, you're listening to WPVM LP Asheville 103.7, globally at WPVMFM.org, and you're tuned to the Home Business Success Show. I'm your host, Hank Eder. Our next guests are LeShure and Margaret Kirchner. LeShure is a fully licensed certified alcohol and drug counselor, certified yoga instructor, meditation teacher, and certified peer support specialist. He is also a person in long-term recovery. His primary passion is bringing trauma-sensitive, evidence-based, somatic mindfulness and self-compassion practices to those recovering from substance misuse and eating disorders, individuals experiencing spiritual emergency, and anyone dealing with the effects of trauma. Margaret Kirchner is a certified trauma-sensitive yoga therapist, a fully licensed certified alcohol and drug counselor, a certified peer support specialist, and a certified birth doula. She specializes in guiding individuals' mindful emergence through addiction, trauma, and becoming a mother through gentle movement therapy and integrative breath work. With 20 years of experience as a yoga teacher, Margaret offers an integrated approach to thriving and growing during life transitions. She also provides online one-on-one mentoring support. Together, Eddie and Margaret are a Mindful Emergence, LLC. Welcome to the show, Eddie and Margaret.
Thank you.
Pleasure being with you, Hank.
Well, thank you. Please tell us, what is the meaning of a mindful emergence?
Well, a mindful emergence implies an emergence or a transition, kind of a coming through one phase of life into another phase. And that also implies using mindfulness, being aware, being sensitive to the changes that are taking place, like moving from one space to another space. And everything we offer involves mindfulness, paying attention to the present moment with curiosity and kindness.
So in that sense, the emergence, being mindful, is something that the individual has to be present in the moment to understand what it is that they're going from to what they want to move towards. Am I correct?
Yeah, and it's a very creative space, not a space to speed through as some might think, you know? So it's a place that holds great possibility.
Okay. Well, please tell us about your passion, your purpose, and how does that display itself in a Mindful Emergence LLC?
Well, personally, I, as you mentioned, am a person in long-term recovery, and I know what it's like to be in that place of desperation, being stuck, knowing that there's a different way to live, but not knowing how to get there, not having the tools to get there. And when I finally found recovery, for me, the key was understanding how past trauma had affected me. And I had a severely traumatic experience in my early 20s. And it continued to impact me over the years. And it was really befuddling, Hank, because I felt I had some skills and, you know, in life, and I had been somewhat successful as a parent and working, but I would find myself stuck in these dark places, and I didn't know how to get out until I went to treatment. And I learned about the trauma, how it had impacted me, and took steps to work with that. So my passion has evolved out of that because I want to use the training and experience that I've had to help other people make that mindful emergence, make that shift and change and support people in really, I don't want to sound like a army commercial, but to be all that they can be. You know, so many people come into treatment and come in, you know, they come out of active addiction, and they have a deep sense of shame. And, you know, we help people create a shift in how they look at themselves.
Would you say that having been through many, not many, but having been through part of what some of your clients have been through and having been to those dark places helps you to help to bring them out into the lighter places?
It's invaluable. There's nothing that takes the place of that, from my point of view. Because I tell people that I've worked with, I haven't committed murder, okay? But a lot of the stuff that you did in active addiction, I probably did it. And, you know, it doesn't make me a bad person. And it doesn't make you a bad person if you have done these things and been in these dark places. It's part of being human. It's part of being stuck in this compulsive behavior that destroys people's lives and destroys their families.
Well, what type of services do each of you offer?
Well, actually, I'd like Margaret to comment a little bit about her background, if that's okay, because I kind of took up the time.
That's okay.
Yeah, so what we offer is really a nourishing presence, using simple steps to help people come back to their bodies and to work with their minds and to understand the simplicity and the profound power of their breath. And so I have been a mother, and then I became a birth doula. And through my mothering experience, I was a caregiver to kind of an extreme level. You know, I took care of other people, but didn't really notice or question, you know, what do I need? What do I want? So I discovered that I could regain my power and come back home to my body and the sensations and my needs and my hopes and dreams by using yoga and simple techniques like breathing practices and meditation practices. And that has really served me well and allows me to help others in very simple ways to regain their agency or their empowerment.
Yeah, if I could add to that, a big problem that many people have in early recovery, but just in life in general, there's two things. One is they're disconnected from their body. They don't have a sense of what's going on. And a lot of people are unwilling to get in touch with their body and tune in because it's terrifying, especially if they've experienced trauma, which in the case of people who've been in addiction is pretty much 100% of them have had traumatic experiences. So we help them learn that you can turn your attention towards your body and in a friendly, curious way. The other problem is they believe their thoughts. They believe all the crap that's going around in their head. They believe the stories. And unfortunately, a lot of those stories are very self-deprecating and damaging. So we help people be able to notice what's going on in their head, what's going on in their body in a different way than what they're accustomed to, in a way that really supports their transitions in life.
Do you have ways that you can help them separate the fact that what they're suffering with is a memory as opposed to the fact that it's happening right now? Because I've been led to believe that that's a big process for people that have had trauma are still reliving the trauma, and to their bodies and to their subconscious mind, it's as if it's going on right at this very moment.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an overwhelming experience that hasn't been fully integrated. And so we help them kind of integrate that into their bodies and into their minds in a very compassionate way. First starting with self-compassion, then moving into self-care, and then self-acceptance, you know, noticing all of the parts, all of the old stories, and then integrating the new story little by little, and then really stepping into the practices that helps them to feel in their bodies that they are safe and whole.
They can make meaning out of these experiences that were so difficult.
Okay. Well, what types of clients do you serve? Or in other words, Who are your ideal clients?
Well, for the people who have been caught in active addiction, it would be people who have maybe gone to a treatment center, which is typically 30, maybe 60 days, and they've come out. And they're at so much risk of relapsing or returning to use now is the term that's used. In that first year, it's really a slippery slope. Maybe they're getting some support in their community, maybe they're going to meetings, but we are able to provide ways that they can stabilize their recovery and learn new skills. So it would be people coming out of treatment. We also want to approach the facilities that offer these services to clients, because we can support the important work that they did. In a way, we can help them make them look better. You know, if these people aren't relapsing constantly. And mothers.
And my passion is working with mothers, because I really feel that by supporting mothers, we're supporting the next generation. It's the best intervention that I know of these days. And the third population that we're working with are people that have had some sort of a spiritual awakening. You know, it could be through use of psychedelic medicines or just, you know, spontaneous, you know, realizations that there's more out there. And sometimes when people have these experiences, it's difficult to integrate into their lives. Their bodies might have lots of energy, or they may have digestive difficulties, and they may just have trouble just kind of integrating it into their old paradigm.
A lot of people think they're going crazy, and they're not going crazy. It's just that they haven't integrated it. They haven't made meaning of the experience. They haven't learned how to do that.
So they haven't internalized in a way that their experience has become part of their overall, I don't think maturity is the word I'm looking for, but their consciousness. It hasn't been integrated into their consciousness to become a working part of who they are. And I suppose part of what you're doing is helping them integrate that into their.
Well put.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not just a thought, it's a bodily experience of being.
Yes, the way of being.
Very good. I just want to tell our listeners that our guests today are LeShure and Margaret Kirchner of A Mindful Emergence, LLC. I know that in the past you worked in various facilities to do your magic with clients, and now that you're not actually working in those facilities, you've transformed into a home-based business. And I think in some ways, for a lot of people, the pandemic has made it very necessary to become a home-based business. But were you making that transition before this was actually necessary, or it's an outgrowth of pandemic chic, so to speak?
It's mainly an outgrowth of the pandemic. We were doing little bits of one-on-one consultations, some computer work. I was working with someone in Spain a while ago. You know, I created some meditations for him. And then occasionally we'd have a client that we'd work with online, but it was mostly, you know, we'd go to people's homes, but we would go to treatment centers primarily. When this pandemic hit, we quickly realized we've got to pivot. We've got to figure out how to revamp our website and work with people online. So we've pretty much done that. We're still in the process.
Yeah.
Would you say you're still able to work with treatment centers if they wanted to get on Zoom and have their patients, for example, in one place to be able to participate in sessions? Would that work?
We'd consider that. Yeah, we'd consider. That's a conversation we would have.
Okay, so what are you doing now? You're having more one-on-one sessions with clients?
Yes, we are. Yeah. And it's going very well. I enjoy it.
Yeah, we've had, it was really interesting. As we were in the process of updating our website, we hadn't really launched. You know, we hadn't really let the world know that we'd made this pivot. Before we were even done, we had people contacting us. It was like some kind of energetic thing, like, oh, you know, what do you do? And we've got clients, and and they continue to work with us. We offer these packages, and they complete a series, and then they renew. So it's been very encouraging.
And I can even do yoga with them online.
Yeah.
You know, little bits. It's not the typical yoga class with the mat. We can just do simple things, standing up, using our arms. We can do it in a chair. We can do breathing techniques, one-on-one.
That's kind of what we do anyway. Most of what we do, Hank, is very simple. Margaret's not going to be putting anybody in a headstand. That's not going to happen.
She's not put. Would you say that again? Not
in a headstand. We're not doing headstands. These are
okay.
The kind of stuff that we do, anybody can do. We hear all the time, I can't do yoga and I can't meditate. And what we do is we point out, yes, you can. And here's how. I love your last guest. What did he say? He said, I explain why and I show him how.
Yes.
That's exactly what we do. And we point out to people the value of these and explain, you can do this.
Yeah, it's slow, it's simple. It's really about regulating the nervous system rather than getting stronger or more fit or even more relaxed. Although all of those things may be happening simultaneously, the real intention is to regulate the nervous system, either calming down if it's stuck on high or revving it up a little bit if it's stuck on low.
People who are in depression a lot.
Right.
Well, you mentioned breathing earlier, and someone once told me that when it comes to yoga, that breathing is the most fundamental part of it, and that without the breathing, it isn't really yoga, it's exercise.
Exactly.
You're
the
right.
Breathing is everything. And
So
then the movement is just kind of, you know, that's nice too. And that kind of gets the breathing going.
Yeah.
It's all breath centered.
So would you say in this sense that to help patients, clients to regulate their nervous systems, that the breathing plays a very big part of it?
Yes.
Essential.
Crucial.
Essential. Even in meditation, you know, the breath is a really important part, because going back to the point I made earlier, people believe the stories, they believe all the stuff in their head. And I help them notice that when that happens, they can let go of that and come back to the breath. The breath is an anchor. It's a friendly place. It's a sensation in the body they can come to. And notice all these stories, they can just watch them come and go. So if they get that favorite bad message in their head, they can just go, well, thank you for sharing, but I'm just going to breathe.
And another thing that we're doing with breath, it's not all relaxing. There's something that we offer called integrative breath work, and it's more dynamic breath work. We use headphones, and there's dynamic music and eye shades, and it's a whole hour-long experience where we bring people through a journey, and the breathing is fast and continuous and deep. And it gets people out of the ego mind and kind of moves us into an experience of non-ordinary consciousness.
Very good. What does that look like in the pandemic phase now? If you do that over Zoom, do you provide the dynamic music and tell them, I'm about to put on the music and now you put on your headphones?
Yeah, there's a lot of explanatory information coming into it, lots of time for question and answer, and then the music that can last about 50 minutes or about an hour or so. And then there's a time of integration afterward, where we talk about what happened. There may be some bodily experiences and some energy moving through. A lot can happen, and it's interesting.
It can be really powerful and transforming for people.
Very good. From each of you, what would you say is the best part of what you do?
Well, I'll start. The best part is when I'm working with someone and you look in their eyes and you see they're shut down and they're fearful and they have a lot of negative self-talk, and the light comes on and you start to see this opening and this shifting, and they start employing some of the skills that they're learning, some from us and some from other areas perhaps. And you watch them transform their lives. These are people who others had given up on. Hank, we work with people who've been to treatment 5, 10, 15 times. Some of them have overdosed, they face death, and they make the shift and reclaim their life. There's nothing like it. And to know that we've made a contribution, it's an amazing experience to go through.
That sounds like it definitely would be. And Margaret?
My whole purpose is to nourish people at a very basic soul level. I'm not talking about self-care that involves taking a hot bath and, deep breathing for calming, although those are great and I'll offer them too. But I'm talking about that kind of, being heard, being seen, being validated, noticing that they can come back to their bodies in a safe way. As a birth doula, of course, I'm with them in the experience of birth. So just holding space, encouraging them, following their intuition, supporting them, but then working with people in recovery and spiritual emergence. Just really, as Eddie said, just noticing when the eyes start to make contact again and there's a light behind them and suddenly they're sitting up and their face changes, just the smallest little bodily responses. And I'll point it out to them. They may not even notice, but I'll say, did you notice what you just did there? Did you notice that deep breath? How about that growl? Do a little bit more of that, and just it allows people to be really human and really seen.
Really honoring this process, supporting it, encouraging it, because everything they need is inside them. We're just facilitators.
Okay.
Their wholeness.
Yes, and for many people, being heard is so important because I suppose that much of their trauma has put them in a place that they feel that nobody hears them, nobody sees them, nobody understands them.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was out of control. It was fast. It was painful. It was overwhelming. And we slow everything way down. We hear them, we validate their experience, and then we take them to another perspective. We help them to shift and integrate.
Very good. And if you could say there's a worst part to what you do, what might that be?
That one's easy. That's showing up at a treatment center and realizing Jeremy or Tiffany isn't there. And the reason they're not there is they relapsed and they died. We haven't had any clients of ours, direct clients of ours, pass away, but we know somebody about 3 weeks ago, known him for years. He had a medical procedure, there was pain, that he ended up going back out and using opiates, and he overdosed and died.
So
it's heartbreaking.
So by putting him on opiates for pain because he was a former user, it was more difficult for him, right?
Triggered, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it triggered his use.
Yeah, it happens.
Of course, we don't know, but in this day and age, there's a lot of tragedy and a lot of suffering going on right now in the pandemic. People's old challenges, old demons are resurfacing.
Yeah. Substance abuse has gone up, domestic violence has gone up, overdoses have gone up, crime's gone up.
Stress and depression, anxiety.
Overwhelm, all this stuff is higher.
Hitting the roof.
It's really bad.
Is that because people feel helpless?
There's fear, and people lost jobs.
Yeah, a lot of factors.
I mean, Hank, you're, I'm sure, very aware of what's going on as a result of this pandemic and how it's been handled, okay, or mishandled. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, we have to skirt the edge of that, but I see where you're coming with that.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, exactly. Since you've gone and made the transition into a home-based business, what might you say are some of the advantages and disadvantages of operating a home-based business?
Well, the advantages for sure is that we can reach a wider audience now. Before, we were confined to, the area that we could drive to in a day, and we would go to various treatment centers in and around Asheville, North Carolina. but there was only so much time in a day and energy. So now we can sit in front of our computer and really work with anyone.
Yeah.
So that opens up some great possibilities for us that we're excited about.
And we don't have to do all that driving. I was worn out from driving, you know, and the wear and tear in the car. And yes, those are advantages. Yeah. We can reach more people, impact more people.
And maybe make more money.
Maybe that would definitely be an advantage.
Be nice.
And disadvantages? I've got so much to learn about technology. I mean, I'm listening to your prior guest. You and I had a conversation over coffee. I mean, there's such a learning curve for me that I'm taking on because of the technology and different programs and platforms. I have a lot to learn. And Margaret too, but I'm the one that's mostly taken on.
He's doing it. I'm so happy about that.
That's the hardest part of the transition.
We all have to become sort of almost like superheroes in some way in this day and age in order to ply a business that is home-based and internet-based. But after a while, it's like these other things. We talked about a few minutes ago how when someone's gone through some kind of a really transformative experience and they still haven't integrated that into their consciousness, it's the same with the technology. Sometimes you're frustrated. Sometimes you want to, like that old poster that showed a picture of a duck and he had a sledgehammer and it said, hit any key. And that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to destroy the computer. And sometimes we feel that way. But over time, it all settles in. And before you know it, you're doing things that you really didn't think you'd be doing. And even for myself, as I've moved into my own technical aspects of my business, I mean, Eddie, you and I are not all that far apart in the generation that we come from. We're not the generation that cut our teeth on computers. In fact, we're the generation that most of our classmates, except the very rich ones, didn't even have simple calculators in their math classes, because I remember when I was in high school, a calculator cost like $250. And it didn't do what, you know, your $9 calculator does today. But I digress. I think my main point of that is eventually these things will become integrated. And it does get easier.
I had a helpful conversation a couple of hours ago with a friend of mine who lives out of state. And he told me what a great job I'm doing. He says, I'm looking at your videos and I'm seeing what you're doing. And this is really good. And this is really good. And I pause and I went, I guess I am making progress. I am learning. A month ago, we set up a YouTube channel. I didn't know what a thumbnail was. I didn't know a card, thumbnail and card. That's what I played gin rummy with, you know. So, you know, I'm making progress, slow, steady.
And as I think you know, in the field that you're in, that you should do little things to celebrate those progress.
Yes, we do. We
do. Do the little celebrations for each step, and something wonderful that it could be something simple, like, you know, order some wonderful dinner that you really enjoy to celebrate that you just moved past this milestone of technical blockage.
Yeah, we've actually done that. Yeah, we do a high five, a happy dance, and then a victory stance.
There you go. We're getting to that time where we're actually running short on time. So if you would, please tell our listeners the best ways to get in touch with you.
Best way is to go to our website. It's mindfulemergence.com. So it's a mindful emergence.
And we're also on several social media platforms as a Mindful Emergence. You can go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And if you go to the YouTube channel, please check out our videos. And if you like them, subscribe and hit that little notification button so we can bring our ranking out.
He's learning.
I'd be very happy to look at your videos. I have to check those out soon. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
And before I sign off, I'd like to say that there are some great resources available for people who run home businesses, including a community of like-minded folks. If you want to learn more, please drop me an email at hank@hankeater.com. And please join us again next week. We'll be back every Friday at 10 a.m. here on WPVM LP Asheville 103.7, on the web globally at WPVMFM.org. And here's wishing all of you a fabulous day of home business success.